Hi everyone, my name is Solon, and welcome to Grace Church. Thank you for choosing to spend part of your weekend with us. There's a lot happening around here, so we want to spend a few minutes telling you about what's going on here at Grace. Let's take a look. Last week, we hosted the wonderful World of Fall Fest. We had such a great time serving the families in our community with candy, costumes, and games. If you and your family joined us, we hope you had a great time. We also could not do this without the service of faithful volunteers. So if you gave your time, we want to say thank you. One of the things we are most passionate about here at Grace is reaching the next generation. When a child grows up knowing they are loved by God and were created with a purpose, it doesn't only change their life, but it can also impact an entire family. God is doing some amazing things in the lives of our kids here at Grace, and we want you to be a part of it. If you love serving and teaching children, we need your help on our Grace Kids volunteer team. If you want to get plugged in, send an email to kids@grace-alone.org to get signed up. Our annual partnership with Operation Christmas Child is underway. We need your help to reach our goal of packing 1,000 shoe boxes from Grace Church and sharing God's love with children across the globe. Brochures with instructions on how to pack your shoebox can be picked up at the Connection Center as you exit today, or visit our website. Return your filled shoebox during any of the services the weekend of November 9th and 10th, or November 16th and 17th. Here's a glimpse of an impact of your gift-filled shoebox in a child's life.
The countdown happens, and the cheers just erupt everywhere.
They jump up with joy. They jump up with smiles.
They've just now got their boxes. They're opening them, and it is so much fun.
This could be the first present that they've ever received.
Operation Christmas Child gifts really touches children's heart. During distribution, we tell children that there is a God who created us and who loved us.
Jesus loves you. Good.
Isn't it incredible to see the impact these simple gifts are making in the lives of children all over the world?
What amazes me the most is the miracles in each box.
Jesus said, let them come to me. And we're in the middle of bringing the children to Jesus.
Many children around the world still need to hear the good news of Jesus Christ. So keep packing. Thank you for your continued support, and God bless.
Have you ever wondered what goes into making weekend media happen? Do you want to be a part of it? Join us Thursday, November 14th from 6 to 9 p.m. for video production team training. Dinner provided and no experience necessary. RSVP by November 7th. You can always find more information on everything going on here at Grace by checking out the bulletin that you were handed when you walked in today. You can also check us out online at grace-alone.org. We now ask that you please find your seats and silence your cell phones for the start of today's service. On behalf of the elders, staff, and volunteers, thanks for being here. We hope you have a great weekend and that you enjoy your time here at Grace Church.
Well, good morning, Grace Church. Let's go ahead and stand together and sing this out. I believe that the future is bright. I believe in His promise for me. I believe that He's working and He's not the best is yet to come. I know He makes the anxious courageous. I know He makes the doubters believe. I know He won't stop working 'cause He's not the best is yet to come. I got this hope in my soul. I know You won't let me go. Lord, I believe with all I've been made, I'm just begun. The best is yet to come. I believe that He gives second chances. I know He won't. I believe that He's working I got my hopes on you, make my hopes rise. I got my hopes on you, hold my whole life. I've got my hopes on you, make my hopes rise. I've got my hopes on you, hold my whole life. I've got my hopes on you, make my hopes rise. I've got my hopes on you, hold my whole life. I've got my hopes on you, make my hopes rise. I've got my hopes on you, hold my whole life. I got this hope in my soul. I know you won't let me go. Lord, I believe your life in me has just begun. I got this hope in my soul. I know you won't let me go. Lord, I believe your life in me has just begun. The best is yet to come.
Lord, how you've loved me, I don't deserve grace on top of grace. More than I've asked for, more than I'm
walls of pride. Open the heavens, Almighty God, you are overcome, defender of my heart. By your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Oh, shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens, Almighty God, you are overcome, defender of my heart. Oh, yeah, by your power, the oceans open wide, your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains know. I believe there will be breakthrough. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. Amen. Praise God. We believe that. Amen. Thanks for singing with us. Go ahead and have a seat.
Good morning. Hey, we've got many people trying to get in and get seats, so if you could kind of move toward the middle if you're in the middle aisle, and on the sides, maybe move to the ends, and then they'll have room. I know Pastor Scott just texted me backstage and said we're still looking for seats. So if you're out in the foyer, come on in. We'll find a seat for you. Don't be shy. Glad you're here. So we're in the midst of a series entitled Mirrors, What Reflection Do I See? And the reflection that we're looking at is not necessarily the reflection of the outside person, but the internal person. And all of us look at a reflection that's been influenced by our parents, our worldview, our environment. I was just with two kind of urgent situations here, and we were praying over some people, and just you're influenced by tragedy. You're influenced by situations that happen that you have zero control over. And all of that impacts something that you were created with and I was created with, and that's basically our base personality. And I just spit all over everything. But anyways, and so our base personality is really how God wired us, even in our mother's womb. And something that stood out, I want to say this because I know it's a challenge for all of us, but this study is being, we're using a tool called the Enneagram. Now, I need you all to pay attention to this. I know we're still getting people seated. You're watching online. You're a guest. It's your first time, or whether you've been here for 30 years. I need you to hear this, all right? There is nothing that we do. There's not a message I preach, not a sermon series we do that doesn't have endless hours, really, of study and research and time. There's about 200 hours in this 10-week series. And that's me personally. I have a preaching team with people who have PhDs and are very educated. I have an education. We study very hard. And the reason I'm telling you this, not bragging about our preaching team, I'm trying to help you understand that we would never let anything hit this stage that isn't, number one, biblical. The Bible is the authority. The Bible is the authority. Did everybody catch that? Because I need you to hear this, because I have received a few comments and emails in the midst of literally dozens of great stories that we've received. There have been a few that are like, it's pagan. The Enneagram's witchcraft. No, it's not. Okay, hold on. First of all, it's mathematic. It goes about 2,000, and when I was in math class, I thought it was evil too. But anyways, it goes back about 2,000 to 4,000 years, okay? Nobody knows exactly where it started, so I don't need you to send me the origins of the Enneagram, because whoever gave it to you doesn't know either. All right? What happened is, we know that it was influenced by the Pythagorean theorem. We know that it was influenced by mathematics, breaking down the degrees of 9 personality types. Ennea means 9, gram means communication. All right? Many different belief systems. This is how philosophical and theological angles influence a mathematical equation with a lot of philosophy involved. When Socrates and Plato and some of the great philosophers got a hold of it. And so we have pagans that took the Enneagram and made it something that they wanted it to be. Now they still use the base personality types. We have Christians and Catholicism that was very influential in the origin of a Christian worldview that influenced the Enneagram. And by the way, that's the angle we're coming from. Okay? And then you have the Celtic, and then you have some other belief systems that may be way off, but that's okay, because the Enneagram is a tool. Now, it is undeniable that it has a divine influence. Undeniable. You can't be this accurate if God's not involved. He's the one that wired us, all right? But the Bible is our authority. I don't turn to the Enneagram to find out how to live today. I don't go to the road back to you. The road back to you and the path between us are just companion books. They're not even Christian books per se. But you know what? If you limit yourself to only reading Christian books, you are hurting yourself. I read everything I can get my hands on. It doesn't mean you're going to turn into a pagan because you read a pagan's book. You're not going to become an evolutionist because you read an evolutionary book. You need to know everything you possibly can. But knowledge is to change our lives, not to be an end-all in and of itself. Now, I say that to finish this comment, all right? I used the example of a Cadillac last week. And I said the Cadillac's been around 40, 50. It's actually been around since 1902. The first Cadillac came around in 1902. And I would venture to say the first Cadillac in 1902 is nothing like the Cadillac of 2019, right? And who has driven Cadillacs? Everybody from mobsters to rappers to presidents. All criminals. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's a joke. All right, that's a joke. All right, bad joke. All right, but anyways, everybody's driven them. I mean, you see a mobster driving a Cadillac. You see a politician driving a Cadillac. See grandma driving a Cadillac. You see Cadillacs used when people's loved ones pass away and they're driven to the memorial. Does that determine what a Cadillac is? No, it's a vehicle. It's all moral. It can be used for good, bad, and ugly. All right? This is critical, guys. You got to catch this. All right? Because a Cadillac was used in a drive-by shooting doesn't mean you should go, oh, I don't touch Cadillacs. I won't ride in a Cadillac. And this is what Christians do a lot. Well, I can't listen to that. Can't do that because, they were pagan. Hey, the world's pagan. That's why Jesus came. To redeem pagans like me and you. All right? So we're using it as a tool. The Bible's the authority, so relax. As you can see, I'm relaxed. I'm not defensive. Do I sound defensive? I'm not defensive. No, I'm not. But I am passionate about this, okay? And I'm also passionate about the fact that when somebody says, well, that's not biblical, or don't you know, it's kind of like, hey, I would never go to your job and say, do you have any clue what you're doing? Have you ever studied this? I've been doing this for 35 years. I'm not asking you to be blind. I want you to go to the Word of God and check everything I have to say out. But please don't assume that I haven't done my homework, okay? And so when it comes to our studies, we're watching God transform lives. And what I'd love to hear is your story of transformation, how this series has influenced you. Many of you come to us in the foyer. Many of you say things. Sometimes you put a Facebook post. Guys, there are thousands of people in this church. This is one of 4 services. The average member comes once every 4 weeks, so you'd have to be here all month to know how many people go here. There's thousands who watch online, and even more we don't know about that watch through the week. And so we can't remember everything, all right? I'm one person, and our staff is 50, and only 36 here in the United States. So we want to hear your story. Will you send it to mystory@grace-alone.org? Will you just send your story, a paragraph, a page? Tell us how the small group has helped. Tell us how maybe the weekend service or a discussion, maybe the reading of the book. We want to hear. And at the end, during our celebration weekend, the week after this series ends, we're going to share some of those stories. We've got some amazing, it is going to be a party to end all church parties. All right, so anyways, here's the deal. We're talking about today the 4, and the 4 is the individualist. I'm very passionate about the 4 because now I get into the numbers that my children are in, okay? And my wife is a 1. She's a reformer. Remember, the 1s are life's referees, okay? Penalty, back up 15 yards. I mean, everything's in order. They do things by the book. That's why God gave me to my wife, to completely destroy any hope of doing everything right. And so there's the 1. Then there's the 2 is the helper. And the helper is the helper extraordinaire. They're the nurses. They're the life changers, man. They will do anything for you even if you don't want them to. And they have a struggle too. The reformer struggles with shoulding all over everyone. They should on themselves. I'm saying should. They should on everybody, all right? The 2 has a struggle. Their struggle is they have deep resentment at times. It's insidious anger. They don't tell you, but they're like, why don't you ever help me? And then the 3 last week was the achiever. And the achiever are world changers. They're incredible. They're the people that put us on the moon. And Martin Luther King started the civil rights movement. Martin Luther, the Reformation, 500 years before that. The problem is they can also fall into a trap of deception. They're not always honest. Today we talk about the 4. And the 4 is the individualist. And if you look at our mirrors, these are the perspectives that can be skewed by our worldview, our family, our friendships, sin, brokenness. When the 4 looks at themselves, if they're out of balance or they have a distorted view, they're overly sensitive, they're eclectic, some might even say weird, they're dramatic. As a matter of fact, did you know this? That 4 is the least populated number of Americans. There are less 4s in America than any of the other numbers on the Enneagram. But 4s and 3s make up 90% of celebrities, musicians, and Broadway actors and actresses. Oh, they're dramatic, all right? And then they're self-absorbed. And we can all fall into self-absorption, but they are self-absorbed at times because they're always thinking about introspection. Now, this is a distorted view. We want to get to a positive view of the individualist. Now, we know that God sees us 5 ways. From Genesis to Genesis to Revelation, I've found there are 5 words that describe how God sees every one of his children. We are capable, valuable, forgivable, acceptable, and lovable. That's unchangeable. It doesn't matter what number you are. So if you ever doubt any of this, just look to God. He says, you are everything. All right? But we want to help the individualist realize that they're creative, not kooky. That they're talented. That they're unique. That they're empathetic. Man, they are in touch with their emotions unlike most people. Now, I've sort of defined it this way. You look in the notes I gave you here on the screen. The individualist is deeply self-aware, creative, emotionally honest, often melancholy, and always willing to indulge in the good things in life. All right? So I wore my closest 4 shirt. It says, I like to party, but I'm a preacher. It's the best I could do, all right? So the 4 is an individualist. And listen, guys, if you don't think of 4 as an individualist, wait till you see the guy in the Bible we're going to talk about today. Now, in our services on the weekends, we are talking about people Jesus encountered during his earthly ministry of 3.5 years, all right? But this person is not an individual Jesus encountered during his earthly ministry, but he talked about him. It's an individual that he created, because Jesus was not born 2,000 years ago. Jesus is God. He has always been and always will be. Colossians 1 says he is before all things, and by him all things hold together. And because Jesus is eternal, omnipotent, all-powerful, all-knowing, unchangeable, he created this guy we're going to look at, and he was a guy named David. And David was the ultimate 4. I've actually had people say, oh, David was a 7. No, David partied like a 7. But David was a 4. If you don't think David was a 4, you need to read all 150 chapters of the book of Psalms. And if you don't want to do that, listen to me every day on Facebook. I just got done. You can go back and listen to all those readings. Every day at noon, I do a Bible reading. We're going through the Bible. Right now, we're in Matthew. Love for you to join us. Just like it, and it'll pop up every day. But here's the point. David was a 4. And so we're going to talk about 2 stories in the life of David. You maybe have heard him as related before as the kid that conquered the giant, David and Goliath. Or maybe you've heard of David as King David, the second king of Israel after Saul. Or maybe you've heard of him as King David, who had an affair with Bathsheba, committed murder after adultery, and a baby died. All right, there's a lot of things you could say about David. But David was an individual, unlike most. So the 2 stories we're going to look at, Jesus references. One is Jesus is talking to his disciples. He's talking to the religious leaders of the day. The problem with religious leaders is they only care about the letter of the law. They have no concept of the spirit of the law. They think the law can save you, and it can't. They think the law was given to make you right, and it's not. The law was given, according to Galatians 3, to show us we can't be right, that we can't be sinless, that we need who? Jesus. That's why he died. If I could be right without Jesus, Galatians 2:21 says, I do not set aside the grace of God. If righteousness could be attained by obedience to the law, Christ died in vain. I can't be right. I can't become right. I can't be religious enough. Jesus died to save us. He paid for all of our sin. He made us right before God. But God commended his love toward us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Okay? So what happens here is Jesus tells a story, and it is shocking. I mean, the religious leaders are going like this. I mean, they're just freaking out. All right? Because he tells the story of David doing something in the temple. Now, guys, if you're not familiar with the temple, that's okay. The temple was first a tent that the Israelites carried around where the presence of God existed. The presence of God existed in the Holy of Holies in the temple. And there was the Ark of the Covenant, not just in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Greatest movie ever, all right? It was also a real ark. As a matter of fact, when Spielberg and Lucas built the Ark of the Covenant, with Hollywood magic, they built it to the exact proportions, dimensions, and design of the Old Testament Ark of the Covenant. And they would carry the 10 Commandments around the nation of Israel. And God would reside with whoever had the ark. Well, it was for the people of Israel. Well, God said, I'm your God, I'm your king. They said, no, we want a man for a king. God's like, I give you a man for a king, you're going to have an imperfect king. We want him anyway, so Saul came along. Now, Saul gets a bad rap because he was a good king for a while. And as a matter of fact, Saul wasn't just a good king for a while, then he lost his mind, but he was a great dad. You know how I know that? Because his son was Jonathan, one of the greatest people who ever lived. And you can't have great kids if you're not a good parent, all right? And not a kid like that. And so Saul had some good qualities, but he wasn't a great king, especially the last 4 or 5 years of his tenure. So David is this young boy. He's anointed by Samuel the prophet. He's going to become the next king, but he has to wait. He has to wait many years. And then the story goes that Saul tried to kill him. Not once, not twice, but there's 9 verses in the Bible where he tried to kill David. Twice he tried to pin his head to the wall while David was playing him harp for him. Then David's on the run. He's got his mighty men, and he walks into the temple and he says, listen, my guys are starving, and he eats the showbread. That was the bread used for worship that only the Levitical priest was supposed to eat, based on not just the law, but based on man-made laws. And look at this. Jesus responded, haven't you ever heard what King David and his men did when they were hungry? They entered the house of God when Abiathar was chief priest and ate the sacred bread of God's presence. They violated the law by eating bread that only the priests were allowed to eat. But there is one here who is even greater than the temple. Guys, an individualist, a 4, understands the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. They understand that God cares more about the person than the parameters. Now, I'm not talking about situational ethics. It's not like, well, I killed him because. No, that's not okay. Well, I had an affair because. No, that's not okay. All right? However, God does care more about why we do what we do than what we do. And in this situation, they're upset because he ate the showbread, and Jesus is saying that's okay. And so we go on to read this. Look, but as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, here's the other story. So we go back a little bit, or actually forward in David's life. Michal, the daughter of Saul, who would become David's wife, all right, was David's wife, looked down from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing, can you circle leaping and dancing? If you have a 4 in your family, you'll know it, because they're leaping and dancing a lot. They like that. They are expressive. They emote celebration. They also emote melancholy, almost sometimes depression. And sometimes it's going to be frustrating because you're like, wow, they're up, they're down, they're round and round. Hey, listen, you need to understand, if you have a 4 in your family, they're a gift from God. They may be a little bit more of a challenge to understand, but when you understand and love them and allow them that expression, they fly. Now look what happens here. Before the Lord, and it says this, she was filled with contempt for him. I want you to circle that. Many people in the Christian community have been accused of this, and rightfully so. They have contempt for a 4. Oh, look at them. They're making this all about them. Why are they crying during worship? Why do they close their eyes and raise their hands? And we are guilty of that. And this is what happens to a 4 quite often. People in their lives accuse them of things. They even define them by gender. If you're a 4 and you're a guy, well, hey, you're not really a man. What? Let me tell you something. A man is a man who can be in touch with his feelings and strong. That's a man. And 4s many times understand that better than 8s, better than 3s. Now he goes on to say this. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in a place inside the special tent David had prepared for, and David sacrificed burnt offerings, peace offerings to the Lord. When he had finished the sacrifices, David blessed the people in the name of the Lord, the heaven's armies. Then he gave every Israelite man, a woman in the crowd, a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins. Let me tell you what that was. That was a party. That was a big-time party. Matter of fact, we're going to take a cue from them. Last weekend, we're going to have food. We'll just have cake of raisins and a cake. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to have stuff, all right? And they didn't just run down to Costco and buy a big sheet cake. That was a big deal. They made that food. And he says, then all the people returned to their homes. When David returned home to bless his own family, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet him. She said in disgust, look at the hatred sometimes. She said, how distinguished the king of Israel looked today, shamelessly exposing himself to the servant girls like any vulgar person might do. Now, if you've ever read the story, you might go, well, David did dance naked. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. When worship happens, please keep your clothes on. Let's just get that out of the way first, all right? Even if you're a 4. But I want to come back to this, all right? David comes into the city. He is bringing the Ark of the Covenant back. He takes off his royal garments. Why? Because he is saying, there's only one king, and I'm not him. He strips down to a point of humility. He has only his ephod on. I want you to picture like a Native American 150 years ago. There's nothing under it. It's a kilt, basically, but only covering front and back. He strips all the way down. He's showing the nation of Israel, I am humble before my God. Even his wife was disgusted by him. Sometimes 4s are accused even by the people closest to them. Oh, you're so emotional. Oh, don't try to manipulate me. Oh, you're so phony. Whoa, take a chill pill, man. They're just emotional. And you'll see this in a moment when we get to some of the negative traits, that what Michael did was wrong. But I want to look at the positive reflections of the individualist. If you're a 4, you shine in these areas. And David expressed them himself. First of all, you are, like David, truly you believe you have a purpose that will change the world. He truly believed his purpose was to change the world. And I want to tell you something. If you're raising a 4, or if you are a 4 and people have suppressed you, remember I talked last week about people in my life that love me that say, well, you need to stop doing this and you need to stop doing that because I'm driven. In the same way, if you have a 4 and you're telling them, stop crying, stop laughing, stop being such a spectacle when you worship, you are killing them. He knew his purpose was to change the world. And I want to say to the 4s, just like I say to my youngest son, who is the 4 in our family, change the world, son. Change the world. And, you know, it's funny because he grew up in a family. All of my kids are different, all right? They're not a bunch of cookie cutters. What I love so much among many, many things about my children is they're all unique. And they all have different numbers, and they all manifest in different ways, and they're all extraordinary. And we're not perfect, but one thing that we did right is we encouraged our kids to be who they wanted to be, who God made them to be. But my 3 oldest kids were athletes, and they played basketball, they played sports, they played a lot of sports. And when my youngest son, Jared, who is almost 14 years between him and his oldest brother, Jordan, with 2 sisters in between, when he was 5, he was at a basketball game every single night of the week. I was a coach. My daughter Brooklyn played high school varsity basketball. Jordan and Brittany were at the same college and played basketball in college. Brittany's games were often before Jordan's games. I mean, there were nights we went to 4 games in a night. Jared hates the gym, and he ain't too fond of the church building either, because that's where he spent most of his life. And, you know, he played. He played because it was like a rite of passage. Hey, guys, got to exercise, so why not play basketball? Dad's a coach, let's do it. But after a while, he's like, yeah, I don't love this. I knew my son was a 4 when he was writing music on his ukulele and on the piano when he was 10. I knew he was a 4. I knew he was a 4 when he could dance better than any of us in the family. Well, especially me, because I can't dance. And so I'm like, okay, he's a 4. He's been in dramas and school plays since he was 6. He just said was blessed to go to a school where he could be in high school plays in 1st grade. So I knew that he was a 4, and we encouraged that. We didn't say you have to be like your siblings. We said be a 4. Now, we did have him playing basketball for exercise, so he wouldn't be lazy. And when he was in 6th grade is when I realized this ain't going to work anymore. He's going to have to find another way of exercising. We were in a championship game. He was playing point guard. I was coaching. We had a chance to win the game. He's dribbling around at the top of the key, running the play, which he did very, very well. He crosses a guy over. The kid falls down, and he stops and goes, here. You know, I'm like, what are you doing? The lane is open. Step on his head and go to the basket. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, basketball probably not it. Competition isn't your deal, right? That's all right. Be who God created you to be. Be the amazing creative person he made you to be. And so we embrace that. You know what else David did? He refused to do things like everyone else. You know, David did not follow the protocol of Saul. 4s don't walk at the beat of your own drum. They walk at the beat of their own kazoo or whatever thing they made, or they do their own deal, all right? And that's okay. I was in the kitchen. Jared was a sophomore in high school and getting ready to drive himself to school, and I happened to be home. One of the rare times I was home before my kids went to school, and I'm in the kitchen. I get some coffee, turn around, I'm looking at my phone, reading the paper, and I look up. Jared comes out, and he's like, Dad, have you seen my keys? And I look up, and he's in green pants that look like pajamas. He's in a yellow shirt with SpongeBob on the front of it. He's got a really amazing looking green sport coat. And he's got shoes. I have no idea where he got them. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll help you look. And I'm looking at him. I go, is it Spirit Week? He's like, no, where are my keys, Dad? I'm like, is it dress up day? He's like, no, I need my keys. Oh, here they are. Hand them to him. He's like, gives me a hug. I kiss him on the cheek. He walks out the door. That's just my son going to school on a Tuesday. And I'm like, okay. So when he got home, I'm like, where'd you get all that? He goes, $8 at the thrift store, huh? Amazing. If they don't buy their clothes at the thrift store, they make them. They're out in the grass. I'm like, you get the point, man. They do things unique. You know what else David was? He was deeply emotional and desired real connection with God and others. That's what he desired. Man, I love watching my family worship. We used to have night of worship. Pastor Jason and Pastor Solon are looking at bringing that back, where as believers we can come during the week and just worship God, because, the weekends we have everybody from every walk of life and many people that aren't even Christians. And so there's a degree of what we do is to help reach those who don't know Jesus. But that's time just for Christians to worship God. And I used to walk in the back of night of worship and see my kids in different places and just watch the unique way they all worshiped. But a 4-man, they're very emotional. You know what else David was? He was deeply aware of his good, bad, and ugly traits. He was. Now, I don't like that word ugly because nobody's ugly, but you get the point. We all have good, bad, and not so good traits, all right? But a 4 is very much in tune with that. So they're constantly having this inner turmoil in themselves. Well, I'm not good enough. I didn't accomplish enough. I'm not smart enough. And guys, I want to show you the problem that is involved in a 4's psyche. David fantasized about the unattainable. He's like, I will build a temple on a mountain so high we can reach the heaven. No, you're not. But that's great. Keep dreaming. And sometimes it's unattainable. You know what that leads to? Envy. That is their core sin. Their core sin is, well, gosh, you're better looking than me, so I've got to try and be better looking than you. Gosh, this is why I tell 4s, if you're depressed, you need to get off Instagram because it's Enneagram for you. That's what it turns into. You need to take a break from social media. Social media has its good qualities, but it has some really bad ones. It has led to cyberbullying that's out of the world, right? I mean, it's out of control. That's what I'm trying to say. And on top of all of that, it also leads to false impressions. You're like, wow, look at their perfect life. Nobody has a perfect life. Wow, look at their perfect kids. Nobody has perfect kids. Wow, look, that husband's staring in his wife's eyes, and she's staring in his right before they kiss, right on a beach in California. Heck, they're standing in front of a green screen. That's not even her husband. You get the point, all right? So here's the deal. It can lead to envy. Now, let me tell you what a 4 wants more than anything. A 4 wants significance more than success. A 4 doesn't care how much money they make. 4s do not go to college to, well, Dad, I think I'll be a doctor because it pays the best. No, they go to study Eastern European literature, the classics, and you're like, what are you going to do with that? I don't care. It's significant. Yes, it's significantly expensive too, but hey, okay. Listen, they don't do things the way everybody else does things, and you need to celebrate the fact that they're happy if they're making $10 an hour and they know where their dinner's coming from because they're working with Peace Corps, because they're going on mission trips, because they live in places nobody would live, and they eat things nobody would eat to be significant. Now, look what happens with David. Look at this. And oh, wait, I need to make a comment. And this has troubled me for about a week now. Christians, why must we attack people who say, I've become a Christian like Kanye West? Why? What is going on in the Christian community when you have people? I saw 3 guys in our community that claim to be pastors, and I'm not happy with them, who said, well, if Kanye West really thinks he's a Christian, is he following the Lord? Has he given up every sin in his life? Hey, pal, have you given up every sin in your life? What are you talking about? Jesus transformed him through the gospel. Same way he transforms all the jacked up people, me at the front of the line. And now the Holy Spirit lives in him. Now he's going to heaven. And let me tell you something. Kanye West has more influence than I'll ever have in 100 lifetimes. So what do I want to do? Beat him down? No, I want to lift him up. Kanye, I know you're watching. I love you, brother. But anyways, you get the point, right? I want to lift him up. Makes me mad. All right, look at 2 Samuel 6. David retorted to Michal, I was dancing before the Lord, who chose me above your father and all his family. Ouch. He appointed me as the leader of Israel, the people of the Lord. And look at this. So I celebrate before the Lord. Circle that. 4, celebrate before God. Yes, and I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes. But those servant girls you mentioned will indeed think I'm distinguished. What he's saying is they're going to know that what I did for the kingdom. I wasn't being vulgar. I was being completely transparent. And then look what God says. So Michal, the daughter of Saul, remained childless throughout her entire life. I would venture to say it's not a good idea to mock people's worship. Everybody's different. Now, 4s, you have your struggles too. I know it's hard to believe, but you do. And you beat yourself down over things that maybe don't matter. But David's struggles might be a struggle you can relate to if you're a 4. First of all, he felt superior to everyone else. There were times David was just like, God, I am the only one who loves you. No, you're not. God, I have done all of these things since my youth. No, you haven't. Now, are you saying that the book of Psalms has lies in it? No, it has a personality of a 4 in it. All right? Think about it this way. One day he's saying, oh, Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. The next moment, I am but a worm. One day he says, thank you, God, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. The next time he says, just kill me. My life's worthless. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's round, it's round. You have a 4 in your life, you know what I'm talking about, okay? And God is showing us that we all have troubles. We all get discouraged. We even get depressed at times. Guys, mental illness is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to talk about. And depression and anxiety in the church is real. We can't be phony about this. Well, I just said a magic prayer and I'm all good. No, you're not. That's why we have Celebrate Recovery. That's why we have ministries to help each of us, okay? So don't deny it. That's what I love so much about David. He didn't deny it. He celebrated it. He put it out there. Now, negative reflections are obvious, okay? He felt superior to everyone else. He believes his fantasies excuse his actions. Where did fantasy lead in his life? To a really tragic place. Saul was a good father. David was not a good father. David was a great king for quite some time. The greatest king in the history of Israel. He was a man after God's own heart, and that was said after adultery and murder. That's the grace of God right there. But David was also a person who fantasized about a woman that wasn't his wife. David ended up having 6 wives and 8 children, and he was a mess in his family. If you don't understand and learn from others, that's why 4s, it's critical that you surround yourself not with other 4s necessarily, but with other numbers of people to help you see clearly, because your emotions can really suffocate you. In David's life, he fantasized about a woman who was naked on a rooftop just below his, and he wanted her. But let me tell you what happens. And people ask me this a lot. What happens to a pastor or these religious leaders that fall in sexual immorality? What is wrong with them? Can't they get a hold of their lusts? It's not even sexual that drives them to that point. It's power and pride. It's control. If you can't keep your pride and your powerful desires intact, you will fall too. And listen, this is coming from a preacher who has guarded my life. I've guarded my life, put in every safe trap I can to keep myself from falling into that trap. I'm human as the next person. But I've studied and seen this, and it always comes back to a guy who thinks he's untouchable He's the king of his kingdom. There's zero accountability. And he just starts using that influence to manipulate. You know, I had a situation even last night. I won't meet with a woman alone. I've never have. If I do, I have an assistant or somebody else right at that door. And this person's like, can I just go to your office? I'm like, no. No. We've got women on staff you can talk to. I'll pray with you right now. Guys, you got to put safeguards in place, but you got to also practice your fantasies. You got to make sure that they are balanced in reality. You know what else he struggled with at times? Self-obsession that led to depression. Now, some people ask me, I had somebody ask me this the other day, why are you doing this with the Enneagram? I mean, where's the biblical credibility? They're not coming to the series. They haven't heard anything. I said, let me give it to you. The greatest command of all, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as who? Yourself. That's it. That's the biblical mandate. The most important one according to Jesus. That's why we're doing this. But self-love is not self-obsession. We have a culture today that is teaching kids in school, is permeating all facets of our country. It is telling you, you must love yourself. You are the God of your world. Nobody matters more than you. Put number one first. And you know what it's led to? The highest suicide rate in the history of this country. And I can go right down the list. Broken relationships, broken marriages, broken families. David struggled with that. And you know what else? He was often looking for the ideal love and perfect circumstances. Let me just say this to all the fours and anybody else in the room who thinks that there is a perfect church. There isn't. Who thinks there's a perfect marriage? It doesn't exist. Who thinks there's a perfect job? No such thing. Okay? It is only as good as the effort you put into it. The grass is greener, not on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it and, frankly, shovel poop. That's the truth. There's a lot of poop shoveling in marriage. That's reality, okay? So the positive, the pro in all these struggles is he didn't care what anyone thought. He was expressive. You go back to David's words throughout Psalms. He was very expressive. Man, we have to appreciate people like that. Let me say this to all the fours in the room, and I want us all to read this verse. You need a life verse. If you start to think you don't matter, or you're not good enough, or you're weird, and nobody's like you, that's a lie. Look at Psalm 139:14. This should be your life verse. Let's all read it out loud together, whether you're home or you're here. Let's read it together. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. And a 4 wrote that. Circle wonderfully complex. You're a 4, you're wonderfully complex. You're a woman, you get the point. All of us are wonderfully complex, but there are people that are more in touch with their emotions, and they are wonderfully complex. Now, the best reflection of the individualist is seen in Jesus' response. I know I'm jumping between the two stories. In Jesus' response about David eating the showbread. And he says this, look at it. This is powerful. Guys, this is one of the deepest theological truths you'll ever learn, but you can't miss it. All right, remember David ate the bread, and people ask the question, well, isn't that sin? Didn't he break the law? And look what Jesus said. And he broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of bread that only the priests are allowed to eat. He also gave some to his companions. Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. That is life-changing. As a matter of fact, some of you have been convinced that your church attendance will save you. I had somebody come up to me in the 101 and they talked to me about their church attendance and said, I just want to make sure that we're keeping track of my church attendance at Grace now. I'm like, don't do that. I go, first of all, I can't even imagine how we would. I guess we could put a butt counter in every seat, bing, bing, I don't know. So I'm like, we don't do that. I'm like, can I just ask you why? And she said, well, I just want God to give me credit for being at church. Now, before you scoff at someone like that, she's probably a 1. Okay? So she thinks God is a 1. But she's a 1, and so she's like, hey, we have to fit in these parameters, and I want to follow the rules. And I said, do you understand that going to church, getting baptized, being a good person doesn't save you? And it was mind-blowing. And we had just finished a class on that. So I was able to talk to her again, share the gospel with her, and she said that made sense. Guys, you're saved by grace alone, not by your acts of righteousness, okay? So Jesus is saying it's not the Sabbath wasn't created because God wanted a Sabbath for him. He did not rest after creating everything in 6 days because he was tired. God wasn't like, oh, I can barely make it. Got to get my feet up. None of that. He was showing us how to live. That's what he was saying. You need to rest. So Sabbath was created for man, not for God, okay? Jesus was the greatest individualist to walk the earth. He was truly the only one of his kind to remain unafraid and unwavering, to live a countercultural life and die an incomprehensible death. That's what he did. So if you are a 4, or you're a 4 that's listening, here's what a healthy individualist looks like. This should be your aim in life. Embrace your uniqueness, but without a superiority complex. Guys, do not try to make a 4 conform. They do things the way they feel led to do things. You know what? If you're a 4, dream big, but live practically. Listen, I understand you want to do significant things, but you still have to eat. You still need a roof over your head. You still need to listen to the people in your life that love you. And then love beauty, self-expression, and honesty without losing touch with reality. That can be a real problem. So love beauty and self-expression. Be artistic. Be creative. Don't let anybody put you down for that. But don't lose touch with reality. And then resist depression through the company of positive people. If you're a 4, you need some positive people in your life. If you're just a few 4s sitting around, yeah, this isn't good. Yeah, I'm not good either. You know, nothing's good. You're right. It can get pretty depressing pretty quick, all right? So what you accomplish or don't accomplish does not define your value. You're a unique creation of God with unparalleled gifts, so use them to love God and serve others. And for the rest of us, here's how you love and appreciate a 4. You love and appreciate their search for significance and self-expression. Man, you got a 4 in your life, encourage their search for significance. Encourage their self-expression. Now, guys, I understand that we see things in our culture that you're like, is that self-expression or insanity? I get it, all right? I mean, we have crossed some lines that are just really unbelievable. I mean, I saw a little post or a little thing on Facebook the other day, and it was a motorcyclist who was riding in front of a bunch of bicyclists, and it said, motorcyclist identifies as bicyclist and sets world record for biking. I got to be honest, man. I got to struggle with this, that you can just walk into an arena and identify as something. You are who God made you, all right? Understand that, okay? And so we also need to love and appreciate their creativity and constant compassion. Their creativity and constant compassion. You know, I want to say this to all the 4s that are connected to this ministry. We need you. We need you to step forward and lead this ministry. A lot of times I get this from 4s. Well, I like the church. I had a guy a few months ago who's a 4, and he's young. And I said, hey, man, how long have you been coming? A few months. Do you like it? Yeah, it's fine. It's all right. I'm like, okay. What do you love about it? Well, you know, I think it's good, what you teach and everything. I'm not really impressed with your teaching or the music. I hope that doesn't insult you. No, not at all. Why would it? So we talk a little bit longer. And then he says this. He goes, you know, I wasn't going to come back until you told the story of going to the jungle for a month and living with indigenous people. Then I said, I like this guy. I like this church. Why? Because a 4 doesn't care about impressive shows. They don't care about how well we perform something. They care about true significance. So we need to love and appreciate that. And finally, their emoting personality and empathetic lifestyle. Now, before we close, I'm going to ask the worship team to come out because there's a song that I think just needs to be heard by fours. It's a song written by a musician named Hunter Hayes. And when he tells the story of growing up, you can tell in the lyrics that he was probably bullied. He was a savant musician, great guitarist, great pianist, great singer. And people called him all kinds of things. And so he writes this song called Invisible. And we asked Pastor Jason and the team to sing it because if you feel invisible, let me tell you something. Jesus died for you. You are not invisible. You are the apple of his eye. Listen to these words.
Crowded hallways are the loneliest places for outcasts and rebels, or anyone who just dares to be different. And you've been trying for so long to find out what your place is, but in their narrow minds there's no room for anyone who dares to do something different. Oh, but listen for a minute. And trust the one who's been where you are, wishing all there was sticks and stones. Those words cut deep, but they don't mean you're all alone. You're not invisible. Hear me out. There's so much more to life than what you're feeling now. Someday you'll look back on all these days, and all this pain is gonna be invisible. Quiet looks like weakness. You don't have to fight, 'cause you're strong enough to win without war. Every heart has a rhythm, let yours beat out so loudly everyone can hear. Yeah, I promise you don't need to hide it anymore. Oh, and never be afraid of doing something different. Dare to be something more. Just the one who's been where you are, wishing all there was sticks and stones. Those words cut deep, but they don't mean you're all alone. You're not invisible. Hear me out. There's so much more to this life than what you're feeling now. Someday you'll look back on all these days, and all this pain is gonna be invisible. this pain is gonna be invisible. It'll be invisible.
They're not just going to be temporarily invisible. You grow up, you move beyond some of those things. They're going to be eternally invisible. And that happens when you put your trust in Jesus, you receive salvation. And then it's that day-to-day reality that he never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He sees us as the most important thing in his universe. And God can love you and does love you like nobody else exists. And he can do that for all of us. Let me have you bow your heads and close your eyes for a minute. You know, before we close with a song of worship, I just want you to know that everything that we do in this ministry is to bring glory and honor to God, to live his purposes, and to encourage all of you that God has a plan for you. And it leads back to what have you done with Jesus? If you have never come to the place in your life where you have literally said to God, I am a sinner, I admit it. And I realize there's nothing I can do to take away my sins. But I believe that Jesus Christ died for my sins, all of them, and rose again. And right now I receive the free gift of salvation. If you have never said that, never put your faith in Jesus, you need to do that right now. At the moment you do that, his Spirit comes to live in you and you're going to heaven. And I want to pray for you. I won't have you stand up or come forward. In a moment, I'm going to have you raise your hand and put it right back down. That just tells me you got it. So if you're saying, today, I believe and I receive the free gift of salvation, would you just slip your hand up and put it right back down? God bless you guys. God bless you. Just slip it up. God bless you. Thank you. Praise God. For you who trusted in Jesus, told you I wouldn't embarrass you, and I won't. But we would love to celebrate with you. If you just text the word believe to 313131, make it really simple. Just text the word believe to 313131. We'll give you a call this week. Got a free gift for you. I want to welcome you to the family of God. Father, we love you. We thank you for this opportunity to see people called into your kingdom, to celebrate the fours, Lord, the individualists in our lives. And may we do that moving forward like never before. And we worship you now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Let's stand. Let's sing this last song together. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beyond. Let's sing this out to him. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love's arms around me. Oh, we thank you, Lord. You are good. You are good. Father God, we praise you. And we thank you so much that you are our firm foundation that we can stand on, that we can walk on, that we can rely on every second of every day. Because God, you are our strength. You are our hope. You are constant and you are always there. I thank you. Thank you for being our rock. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen, right? Yeah. He is. I pray that we take this song, this message with us each and every day. Just the truth of knowing that Jesus Christ is your foundation. When everything else may be shaking in your world, He's not. He's solid. And He's there for you. And He loves you more than anything else. Thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you so much. If this is one of your first times here and you got questions, you want to know more, we'd love to answer them. We'd love to get to know you. You got information. I think you got a bulletin when you came in. You can check out there, but also you can check us out online. Let us know. And also, I just want to encourage you, if you call Grace Church your home, I want to remind you of the amazing blessing and opportunity and privilege and responsibility we have to give back to God. Because everything we have in this life, it's all from Him. He's just given it to us to manage. And so it's a privilege that we get to give back to Him. And we don't pass offering plates or anything like that, but we do have boxes in the back and ways that you can give online. I just want to encourage you to not miss that opportunity to worship God through giving as well. Thanks again for being here. I love this. This is awesome. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.